We've been over this. All I do is say, hey!
I absolutely hate the effect Rick and Morty has had on me. Like, I actually saw a Shoney's and I got excited. Well, guys, we finally got the finale to season 4 of Rick and Morty, and it was a roller coaster. If there's any major takeaways from the insanity of this finale, it's that we definitely don't have to worry about the show losing steam for the next 60 episodes. Okay, I gotta be honest. From the moment this season finale began, I was completely floored. I mean, theories were confirmed, theories were born, and for once with Rick and Morty, this channel didn't have to take an L, which is nice. In fact, if you were here for our Clone Beth theory a few months prior, and our speculations in recent weeks, we were hoping you were pleasantly surprised just like we were. Typically with big, game-changing, lore-heavy Rick and Morty episodes, the show begins with an entirely different plot point before segueing into the big reveal. Notable examples being the wedding squanchers and the Rick-Lantis mix-up. But here they go right into the introduction of Space Beth. I love how one of the writers, Anne Lane, referred to the two Beths as Rick's home daughter and space daughter, and that's really the best way to differentiate them going forward. Now, immediately, you probably still want the answer to who's the clone and who's the fake. Pocket Morty does refer to the badass Beth as Clone Beth, but that's probably more for convenience sake, or what she was referred to during production and on model sheets, even if ultimately the answer doesn't matter. Space Beth is the personification of everything she longed for from her father, that she decided to give to herself. In Dan Harmon's own words, she's a Beth who's much more like Rick and thus, ironically, hates Rick. She's out here on her Luke Skywalker shit. The most wanted in the galaxy. Arguably, this episode gave us the best Star Wars movie since... Alright, sequel trilogy jokes are too easy. She's quick on her feet, knows how to fight, and knows how to wiggle out of any situation, just like Rick. They're even matched in that regard, even going toe-to-toe in a match that Beth got the upper hand on. Unlike Rick, her emotional investment has dwindled. It makes sense Beth has the capability to become a murderous vigilante across the galaxy, having a great grasp on advanced technology and Pokemon? That was really cool, actually. Given that she had some borderline psychotic tendencies, with the invention she asked Rick to invent for her growing up, Rick thinks this hero gig is just a phase. But Beth refuses to believe she'll grow out of caring and giving a shit about her family. This is the kind of person Rick raised her to be. Independent, resourceful, doesn't back down, and by the end of the episode, truly embraces that nothing matters until you make it matter. That's where both these Beths differ from Rick. They still give a shit in spite of infinite realities and infinite possibilities. Home Beth wants to atone for everything Rick failed to do as a parent, taking care of her family and guiding them to success. Space Beth wants to atone for everything Rick failed to do as a scientist and as a hero, wiping the new and improved Galactic Federation off the star maps and guiding the rebellion to success. These Beths, despite their glaring differences, are two sides of the same coin. Two people that have grown beyond their father and together outclass him in every way.
For a while, we were content to not know whether she was or wasn't.
And who is that?
I always felt like, yeah, she's a clone, which means that there's a Beth out there. Let's meet her.
So you might be asking, why did they wait an entire season to revisit this plot point? Well, since the original wanted season 3 to be 13 episodes, did they end up saving this story? I don't really believe so. Rather, they needed time to pass organically in both the show and in real time to see how the characters would develop, how the family dynamics would change, specifically with Rick, and have his authority be repeatedly challenged by everyone in the family, including the audience. It's less about paying attention to Beth in episodes throughout this season, because I know this episode will incite a ton of rewatches, and more about paying attention to how Beth reacts to Rick. This is another reason as to why Child Rick of Mort was such a big episode and a precursor to this season finale, as that episode explored how Beth is Rick's Achilles heel. She has the capability of making Rick feel genuine emotions, which he tries to avoid, especially regret. Now that two Beths are in the picture, neither of which are eating out of the palm of Rick's hands, his weakness has doubled, completely stripping Rick of control in the family, something that was spiraling throughout the season. Also, remember how last week we said to Rick, Beth is his only daughter, no matter which version of her it is? I'd say this episode cemented that tenfold. Personally, I think Space Beth is the real Beth. Rick did say in the ABCs of Beth that if she wanted to return, she could slide right in like nothing happened, and the clone would be none the wiser. And now we know that a proximity clip in the clone Beth would transfer the memories to the real Beth before the clone vaporized. But a penny for your thoughts real quick, if people still say that. Space Beth seems like she'd be a drinker, much like the Beth we knew in the first 3 seasons. On top of the soured, my father is a neglectful asshole attitude that she really began to tap into after rediscovering Fruipyland, there's a chance we're all clones, dude. I don't even know. Also, season 3 theme song much with these two Beths taking down the Federation? Remember when we had a fake scene of 2 Summers doing the exact same thing? Either this is a galaxy brain move from the Rick and Morty team, and they have a clearer idea of the direction they're headed in, way more than they want us to believe, or they just thought, hey, what if we did this, but, with Beth? Or it's a major coincidence. The theme song feels like one of the last touches they would would do for a season. However, since it uses clips from various episodes and fake episodes, that being a nugget of foreshadowing actually makes sense. There's a much bigger point to be had over who's the clone, and the reason why it doesn't matter is because the purpose of this decision is to experiment with something not often seen in entertainment, especially a long-running comedy. Characters can go through transformations and arcs all the time, and I think in any other show we would have had Beth become Space Beth, or Space Beth would have been a one and done, or drift back off into space. The show quickly reached a point where Beth could dramatically pivot as a character, because in a show that constantly evolves and pushes the characters to break the status quo from season to season, you can't keep her as the character who turns a blind eye to Rick's shenanigans forever. But there's always a risk in making a big change in a character that's more or less irreversible. That's where Rick and Morty said, fuck it, it's not like we're paying for 2 separate voice actors to keep around anyway. And well, gave us 2 versions of the same character. If Beth just became a space warrior, it would be a gimmick, a novelty. But as her own separate character, where the Beth we're used to remains intact, it suddenly allows for double the character development that truly writes itself. The ending of this episode strongly implies Space Beth is here to stay, at least in a recurring role, still battling the Federation, but now she can do so with the involvement of the entire family. I could definitely spice up the Beth and Jerri B plots from here on out. We have entire videos in the works with season 5 and what to expect, on top of just discussing the 2 Beths in general, so keep your eyes peeled and please subscribe. It's Rick and Morty time. That was in the script. I didn't really want to say that. With all this space talk, we have to touch on the new improved Galactic Federation and Beth's defiance. I'm so glad these boys are back in town. Rewatching older episodes, Rick and Morty truly wasn't the same without their presence. After Rick crushed the Federation and the Citadel in the Rickshank Redemption, the Citadel was able to rebuild with a sinister new leader at the helm, but the Federation was a huge mystery. The hook being the Tammy and Phoenix Person cameo at the end of Rickshank. Now we know they were able to rebuild and rack up new enemies in the form of Beth's Rebellion, which notably features a member of Squanchy's race, but Squanchy was nowhere to be found, which is important, but we'll come to that in a moment. The Federation no longer cares for Rick Sanchez, which is probably a meta jab with all of the hiatuses and interest in the public eye, yet Morty and Summer likely still have targets on their heads due to Space Beth, public enemy number 1. Despite Rick saying the goal is to be left alone to whoever takes over the universe, I think this steps up Rick's goal in season 5, not to regain control, but to regain relevance. He had his season of fun, but now it's time to buckle down and remind the world that Rick is a force to be reckoned with. See, that works in a meta standpoint as well. As for the Defiance, we'll probably get another episode with them down the line, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're reduced to fodder and quickly get killed off in a future appearance. If anything, their return felt more like a jab at the Star Wars franchise than anything. Also, like a weird Wrangler's Gene ad? I don't know. Hey, speaking of getting quickly killed off, Tammy returned, just like we called last week. Whoa. And had to be exterminated like a fucking cockroach. It was really dark. Now, if Tammy is dead, I'm not gonna lie, it probably would have been for the best because she was reduced to a generic Star Wars villain in this episode, which is fine. She served her purpose well in that regard. But it's disappointing she had no real interaction with Summer. It's just kind of sad that the cop-out story train gag had more interaction between these two than her actual appearance. Now, just as we saw Bird Person rise from the ashes and be reborn with cybernetic enhancements, it's possible we have not seen the last of Tammy. This is a show with clones, infinite realities, and hundreds of ways to come back to life. If they want to bring her back, they definitely can. But hey, Rick said it best. She died as she lived, over-serialized. I mean, if you count 4 episodes over the course of 7 years, one of which being a cameo. Over-serialized, I guess. And also, oh my god, Phoenix Person is back. Not only did he return, but Rick was able to save him. Right now, Rick absolutely needs a friend. The world has gotten over him, his family has knocked him down to an equal playing field, and season 4 already highlighted how lonely Rick can be at the end of The Old Man in the Sea. A lot of season 4 tells a subtle story arc that plays off in this episode, and that a 22-minute poop joke was winding us up for the very moment Rick faced off against his best friend. Now, what Phoenix Person said to Rick about always being a bad friend sounded less like Federation mind control and just honest feelings. I'm sure Phoenix Person does hold some genuine resentment towards Rick for how things shook out, and now that Tammy is dead, the conflicting feelings may only escalate. I'm sure Rick will figure out how to recover his buddy, and when the time comes, they may even want to get back together, but knowing Phoenix Person, he may be over everything and would desire a normal domestic life, the one he thought he was marrying into. But life took a very unexpected turn. I'm also going to make a not so bold prediction that the writers are going to have a field day with the cybernetic enhancements. They were cool in this oddly straightforward and serious fight scene that really just served to flex how Rick's a man-made god, but you already know they're going to get goofy with it and have him use the enhancements to cheat and win the most expensive prize at Blitz and Chips on a guy's night out or something. But Rick isn't out of the doghouse yet when it comes to his friends. When he does recover Phoenix Person, there's an elephant in the room that's going to be addressed. Squanchy. Look, at this point, you would likely assume Squanchy is dead or forgotten about. The last time we saw him was battling Tammy at the Wedding Squanchers, and Tammy's appearance since then would insinuate our furry friend kicked the bucket. But when season 4 premiered, we did a video breakdown of a major Easter egg in Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die Repeat, and one of the death crystals in Rick's vision revealed a Federation collar controlling Squanchy tearing Rick in half. Squanchy's hulked out form would be a valuable weapon for anybody in Korean War, so we can see the Federation deploying him on missions, decimating rebellions, assassinating enemies of the Federation, whatever the case may be. The Federation may not care about Rick right now, but if he messes with their business and comes to retrieve an asset to them, their tune may drastically change. Again, Rick isn't a threat when left alone, but banded together, hell will be raised for sure. But we can't just ignore the biggest reveal of this episode. Rick doesn't even know which daughter is the original Beth. Yeah, dude, you are not a great father at all. But the thing is, Rick clearly doesn't want to work on himself. He says as much to Dr. Wong. He incinerates his problems instead of working them out, and it's at the point where everyone around Rick can recognize his flaws, and they can recognize he'll never work on them, so they're all over him. This again is why season 5 would be perfect for Rick to try to reclaim the throne, because he'll have to confront that the only way to really do that is to be honest with himself and make strides to improve. But Rick helping himself? That's the least Rick and Morty thing the show could do. Needless to say, it's a steep uphill battle for Sanchez going forward. We got glimpses of the moment of Beth's life that assumably Rick missed out on, at least in the dimension we've been acquainted with: Morty's birth, her wedding with Jerri, and Beth in her youth potentially around the time Rick departed, but her mother is holding her in her arms. We still know nothing about Rick's wife, so this inclusion felt like a major tease for an answer we may be inching closer to, in like 2 season finales, maybe. Morty and Summer's arc in this episode was leaning to working together. Again, just like last week, you can tell they kind of took a backseat. Morty is still leverage the Federation can use on account of them trying to arrest him, but as usual with the Federation, as long as he stops being at odds with his sister, they can take them down with little effort. I mean, they stopped the giant Death Star-esque genocide weapon that can't destroy pants. That was fun to watch. The biggest takeaway, however, is again, they're no longer impressed with Rick. His invention swayed them even when his personality was a deal breaker. Now that they have a cool space mom with cooler, fresher stories and inventions, what appeal does Rick have? The biggest takeaway from this finale after all of this is that Jerri wins again. He has 2 wives, everyone thinks Rick is kinda lame. I mean, Jerri is still lame, but people are smelling the pathetically scented roses. It seems like Rick cannot catch a break, and it's so interesting to see a character that can topple entire galactic organizations struggle with family issues. And I think that's what at its core made Rick and Morty so special. This finale was absolutely a return to form in my opinion. It completely stuck the landing, it gave me everything I wanted to see, and I've never been more satisfied with a Rick and Morty episode. That being said, what did you guys think of this finale? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let's know in those comments down below, or tweet to us at Roundtable Vids or me at @StretcherNemo. I just want to say one more time, we plan on so much more Rick and Morty content coming out. We're very excited for the future, so definitely stay tuned. If you want to consider helping out the Roundtable, you can support us on Patreon or become a member of the channel and get exclusive access to scripts and avatars. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the Roundtable for more incredible cartoon content. I'm Nemo, this is Rick and Morty Breakdown, and I will see you next time. Peace.